My lords, today we will discuss the event codenamed the Doorway. The Doorway is a colony event chain with several different branching outcomes. Certainly the Will of the Shroud can make or break your empire here. The Doorway is discovered approximately 2 to 3 years upon colonizing a new planet, and has a very low chance to fire. Should you explore the Doorway, there are 5 possible outcomes: the Dimension of Suffering, the High Energy Dimension, the Null Void, Mirror Mirror, and finally the Dimension of Static. Normally, each has a 20% chance to fire. However, a Dimension of Static can only roll if the Empire world is not artificial. This rules out habitats, ring worlds, shattered rings, Ecumenopolis, hive worlds, machine worlds, and relic worlds. Furthermore, modifiers mean it won't fire if said empire does not currently own its homeworld, and the empire must be a player. Furthermore, certain aspects of the Dimension of Suffering are only available to empires with the Knights of the Toxic God. Therefore, my lords, it's much more common to see High Energy Dimension, Null Void and Mirror Mirror, as this somewhat reflects the seriousness of the other two. As stated, approximately 2 to 3 years post-colonizing a new planet, the Doorway event has a small chance to begin. It starts with a most ominous message that reads, "What can only be described as a dimensional portal has been discovered in a remote location on our new colony. Weather prediction algorithms notice a strange air current which was determined to be caused by the slight leakage of atmosphere into the portal. The rate of loss was far too small for it to make any difference to the life on the planet, but the very existence of the portal raises some disturbing questions, such as where does it lead to, and could something come through the portal from the other side? We're going to begin by exploring the High Energy Dimension, as it is by far the most straightforward. If you peek into the dimensional portal, you learn that it leads to a dimension of pure energy, a small amount of which can be siphoned through the portal for your own use. The procedures used to handle discrete packets of energy also have potential use as an energy weapon system. This outcome results in a reasonable amount of engineering research gained. You'll unlock plasma throwers as the technology, or increase the tier of tech on that tree, and you'll also be able to assign researchers to study the portal, and they will produce energy credits. This, I think it's fair to say, is the least interesting outcome. The Null Void comes next. In this case, the dimensional portal leads to a dimension of pure entropy. It is difficult even to get sensor readings because the very energy of our pings is rapidly dissipated. The best theory is that this Null Void, where the majority of 0-point energy is negative, and so any positive energy which was once present has long since been used up. Knowing this, it may be possible to construct a weapon which can use this Null Void's energy offensively. This outcome, my lords, as you may have guessed, will provide you with the Null Beam technology partially unlocked. Null Beams are a fairly inconsequential weapon that have a really specific niche use against shields, but they're largely ineffective against anything else, and frankly, it's highly unlikely you'll end up using them. What you will find, however, after years of further study, your researchers will begin to feel they understand the Null Void. They'll notice currents, forces if you like, some which gently push against the portal, bring in traces of dark matter that you're able to collect. In theory, it's possible to make the portal more visible, which will hopefully result in a larger harvest. This provides you with the opportunity to build a vast signal amplifier. This can send a blast of energy into the portal, with the immediate effect that the pressure on the far side of the portal is notably stronger, and with that comes an increased flow of dark matter. This, as expected, gives your dimensional portal researchers a large increase in the amount of dark matter they produce, certainly a better outcome than the first one. The third potential outcome is Mirror Mirror. Strangely, the portal here seems to connect to a planet that looks very much like one of our own worlds. Stranger still, there's a signal being broadcast through the portal to us. In this outcome, you'll find that you make contact with yourself, and it's marvellous indeed. You can discuss that the portal bridges the gap between alternate dimensions, and how at some point an event must have occurred that caused the respective dimensions, i.e. your own civilizations, to diverge. In any case, After exchanging pleasantries with your copy empire, you can choose to engage in interdimensional trade. Now this can go very well, or it can go badly. It fluctuates over time. Should it go badly, you'll learn that your counterparts are dealing with an enemy that they call the Warp Beast. And sadly, it can go really quite jolly badly indeed, as they can be entirely wiped out by said Warp Beasts. Fortunately, as far as we're aware, they can't get through the portal to attack us. So, silver lining I guess, although it would be interesting to explore whatever these Warp Beasts are one day. The final two outcomes are far more impactful and in-depth. We'll begin with the dimension of static first. Initially, upon discovery and investigation, we found the dimensional portal closed itself. When we stabilized the portal, we saw that it led to a dimension consisting solely of a white, formless void, interrupted only by streaks of black noise. This strange phenomenon instantly started to seep into our own universe and began to consume our dimensional stabilizers, which collapsed the gateway in on itself. The portal, static, and dimensional stabilizers have all winked out of existence simultaneously. Nothing was left behind, not even trace particles. If the portal hadn't been unstable, who knows what kind of disaster may have occurred. You'll find approximately 3 years will pass before events fire up again. Researchers working in your primary physics lab on the homeworld will begin to notice strange fluctuations in their work. Hyperdrive-related tests will suffer most from these interferences, yet the interruptions only went on for around a week before stopping entirely. At the same time, the colony with the now closed portal will begin to notice fluctuations. Thankfully, the static did not return, and you hope nothing will come of this. Of course, something will come of it. Several more years will pass before the following events will stir. Eager and anxious discord starts in scientific circles as your scientists will publish recent findings of spontaneously appearing negative mass particles close to your home star. According to these researchers, the findings could advance your understanding of artificial wormholes, as well as a host of other subjects. The Admiralty will of course hold a different view and suggest we bring our fleets home until the source of the new and untested matter can be determined. Indeed, investigations will continue. The greatest minds of your empire will gather and listen to the ideas for using this negative mass, but it will be interrupted. Emergency sirens will screech in every observatory and space station across the star system, and a new fixture will appear in the night sky. A rip in space the size of a star stretches over the horizon, and a small fleet of fighters will pour through the tear. They're hostile, but you'll find them quite weak, and upon investigation discover that they're not even equipped with faster-than-light drives. As the last corvette falls, an ensign manning the sensors of a nearby starbase will report something curious. These ships are very similar to outdated vessels that we stopped using years ago. The ships, as I mentioned, lack FTL drives, but more than that, they're equipped with obsolete weaponry. While the report is coming in, a communication request originating from the strange tear reverberates throughout the system. It's using our highest clearance codes, but they're 10 years old. It is here, my lords, that you'll make first contact with your so-called cousins. As the comm screen flickers on, you will see the most exhausted, elated, and simultaneously petrified human imaginable, and they will look remarkably familiar to you. Many could say a dead ringer, but 20 years older. The man will begin to speak. He will say, "Hello, Alpha. This is Beta. I'm terribly sorry for what just transpired. You have to understand that that was a rogue and defunct element of our world's defensive collective forces, thinking they could seize Alpha by force. I know the words may sound empty, but please believe me when I say we have no ill intention towards you. I and everyone else here are from a parallel universe to yours. We don't know when, but we believe that our two realities split some time ago, and our universe has been unraveling ever since. We first noticed when a remote system started disappearing, and we've been hard at work trying to avoid certain doom. For the last few decades, all of our resources and hours have been invested in opening this trans-dimensional gateway, and it's only with our most experimental technology and advanced physics that we have managed to reach you just a few years before we think our reality will cease to exist." We asked them why they seemed lacking in FTL capability and got quite a response. The speaker seemed at a loss for words. "You managed to crack FTL," he spoke. "What glorious news! These fools had no reason to attack you. Your whole galaxy is available to us, assuming, of course, you're willing to help us." The speaker would end his transmission with a final plea. "Our universe is doomed," he would say. "There is no way to get around that. We have been building a giant transport ship for this day and implore you, please let us send over refugees. Only our brightest children and most capable leaders will fit on these vessels, but you could help save my civilization." A summit of the top minds from every field will gather to discuss the fate of our dimensional cousins. Harsh and difficult debates were had throughout. Some suggested a hands-off approach, studying the end of a universe, could be insightful indeed. There was even talk about granting Beta's request to evacuate as much of the planet as possible, whilst some mentioned how easy it would be to take their precious resources and energy stores left behind on the planet. Just as the summit was winding down, one scientist did take center stage and declared they believed using the new technology brought from the Beta universe, they could save the planet in its entirety. We would choose to try and save the world, and an immense undertaking would occur. Scientists across both dimensions set to work on how they would be able to achieve this magnificent feat, and working with our twins would prove to be very interesting indeed. Problems occurred, of course. Cultural artifacts found themselves stolen and transported between dimensions. Families would reach out to smuggle themselves across borders, and this would lead to the Beta world struggling to maintain operations, but nevertheless, the day would come. The negative mass stabilizers activated, and with a pop and a wink, the rift disappeared out of existence. Moments later, we had a brand new copy of our homeworld, which would share an orbit around our star. A wonderful outcome indeed. And finally, my lords, we have the dimension of suffering. This can lead to the demonic invasion, but that particular branch is only accessible to the Knights of the Toxic God, and it still must be rolled against the other events occurring. You will find that this portal is quite different to the others. It leads to a realm that is opposed to the sapient mind on a fundamental level. Any and all contact with the material realm from this dimension causes intense suffering in the subject, which, if continued for more than a few minutes, leads to intense suicidal urges, coupled with the attempts to mutilate your sensory organs. Even simply studying data recorded in the strange dimension causes intense discomfort in the biological observer and cascading errors in any computer system. At this stage, my lords, several options are available to you. You can choose to simply close the doorway, overloading it with energy until it collapses upon itself, or interestingly, psionics can use their magical powers to close it, resulting in more or less the same outcome. You can, if you're feeling more whimsical, fill the portal with rocks, which will also result in closing it. If, however, my lords, you are a Knight of the Toxic God, you can choose to send a Knight into the portal. Now this has several more outcomes, which is another dice roll. 15% of the time, nothing will happen. 25% of the time, you will trigger the Dark Knight. 20% of the time, Hell and Back, and 40% of the time, Dimensional Refugees. The Dark Knight is the event that will lead on to a full-blown demonic invasion, which I'll discuss shortly. If the Dimensional Refugees event fires, then the following will occur. The portal where you sent the Knight will show intense signs of activity, as ragged civilians appear to be attempting to cross into our dimension. They report that the Knight has been rampaging in their dimension for around a decade, mercilessly slaughtering everyone crossing their path. They slew so many inhabitants of that dimension that a doom has befallen their society. The survivors are trying to flee anywhere they can, and could the existential pain caused by this dimension driven our Knight mad? You're given two options. You can choose to slay the refugees as they come through the portal, or you can offer them sanctuary. That choice is, of course, yours. Remember, 20% of the time you'll roll Hell and Back. In this outcome, the Knight who you send through the portal will return. They will have bested many challenges, felled countless fiends, and narrowly avoided doom, but ultimately nothing could stand in their way. They will bring back many trophies and become legend amongst the squires, who have begun calling them the Doomslayer. If, however, my lords, you roll the Dark Knight, which remember has a 25% chance, the knight who you send through the portal will return, but this time twisted and darkened. They will lead a host of horrors through the portal and immediately assault your colony. Survivors will report hearing the knight erupt in a demonic cackle, claiming they would soon conquer this dimension. The horrors that the knight will lead through the portal will breach your defences and conquer said colony. You will find that the knight has now been possessed by a major dimensional being and is now titling themselves as Lord Purifier. The knight will attempt to open additional portals in order to bring in more demons. Sadly for them, the singularities will collapse, severing the demonic host from their home dimension. Nevertheless, the now so-called Lord Purifier will consolidate their power base before proceeding with their plans of galactic conquest. At this point, you are given a choice, my lords. You, the player, can choose to play as this new demonic horde, or you can attempt to defend the galaxy from it. I would ask you, what would you do?